Hey guys, here we are at part 4 of the story, where the Toads raise Naruto to replace Minato as their summoner. Trained as a sage, Naruto will strike out to find his fellow Jinchuriki. Just not in the way you would expect. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button. Now, let's jump right in. Well Jiraiya, to what do I owe the pleasure? Asked Naruto. Out for a stroll? Just making sure that little Sasuke returns in one piece. I take it I have to get through you first? Asked Jiraiya as he lowered his absurd pose. I had hoped to avoid fighting you for a while yet. It appears you can't have everything you want though. So let's finish this quarrel between us here and now, said Naruto. Jiraiya ran through several seals after biting his thumb and went to slam his hand on the ground, but stopped when Naruto held up his hand. Wait. The Toads are like family to me. It would be unfair to both me and them to make us fight each other. This is an issue to be settled by us. But it would be even more unfair if I were to fight you without Sage Mode. And isn't this to determine which of us is the better sage? Asked Jiraiya, keeping the chakra for the summoning technique ready just in case. True. This isn't a fight between Akatsuki and the Hidden Leaf, or even between Naruto and Jiraiya. This is a battle between sages and Toad summoners. Naruto thought for a moment before continuing. I will wait for you to gather the natural chakra you'll need. How generous of you! Responded Jiraiya sarcastically. I've been perfecting Sage Mode in preparation for this though, so I guess it isn't too much of a disadvantage. Regardless of his distrust, the legendary Sannin sat down and began to meditate, and Naruto did the same. As time passed, the red streaks on Jiraiya's cheeks began to grow until they were massive red triangles covering most of his lower face. On some unspoken signal, both sages decided that he had gathered enough natural chakra and leapt at each other. Their first punches stopped feet away from each other, and both sages were blasted back by the other's natural chakra-enhanced blows. Jiraiya leapt into the air with a small blue sphere in his hand. Naruto was questioning the chances of such a small attack hitting him when it began to grow, reaching a diameter over twice as big as Naruto was tall. Naruto realized that avoiding the attack was now near impossible, and blocking it would likely get him killed. Which left him the sole option of blocking the attack. Naruto gathered a large amount of Sage Chakra in his right fist and struck out. The blue orb of spiraling death buckled under the pressure of the hit, before it burst like a balloon. Only instead of water inside, the massive Rasengan was full of pure Sage Chakra. The explosion was massive, enveloping both sides and several hundred feet beyond. When the dust cleared, both Naruto and Jiraiya were worse for wear, but Naruto was still alive. Not bad, but I've been training to face you since I was a little kid. I'm prepared for all your tricks, said Naruto. You might be a better ninja, but I'm a better sage. Naruto jumped at Jiraiya in a burst of speed. He jumped to the side, easily estimating the distance of Jiraiya's own Sage Mode enhanced punch. The invisible extension of the Sannin's counter brushed past the sleeve of Naruto's Akatsuki cloak, but it did little to stop him. Jiraiya dodged to the side to avoid Naruto's punch, but didn't put enough distance between the punch and himself. You use Sage Mode as a last resort, but I use it constantly. You've never had to worry about getting hurt in Sage Mode, you just power through it. Naruto grinned as he felt the battle going in his favor. That's where I have the advantage. I'm aware of every shortcoming Sage Mode has and how to avoid it. I also know how to use all its strengths to their fullest potential. Like sensing shadow clones underground. Naruto leapt back as Jiraiya's shadow clone jumped out from under the ground, Rasengan in hand. The attack was faster than Naruto had anticipated however, and the Rasengan left a small cut all the way up his chest. The wound wasn't much, but it did destroy the fastenings on his Akatsuki cloak. The shadow clone burst in a puff of smoke as Naruto kicked it violently. Naruto looked up at Jiraiya, whipping out a kunai and filling it with Sage Chakra. The small blade turned to stone, and elongated into a slate gray sword covered in veins of Sage Chakra, with only the ring on the hilt to show that it had once been a simple kunai. Jiraiya recognized the stone sage swords of Mount Myobakuzen, but he had never realized how they were actually made. Naruto ran at Jiraiya, who once more tried to use the extended range of Sage Mode to keep Naruto at bay. This time however, Naruto simply cut through the invisible aura with the sword like butter, Sage Chakra canceling Sage Chakra. The downward swing did put the younger sage at a disadvantage in terms of positioning, and Jiraiya was easily able to avoid the follow-up swing that attempted to cut off his legs. He landed a fair distance away and ran through some seals. Sage Art, Fire Release Stream. The river of flames that Jiraiya spat out was imbued with Sage Chakra, which meant the defensive powers of Sage Mode were completely useless. Knowing this, Naruto gathered Sage Chakra for a counter. Sage Art, Rising Earth Core. The pillar of stone that burst forth from the ground at Naruto's feet carried him up above the fire, which raged at the base of the column for a short time before dying out. Its purpose fulfilled, the stone receded back into the earth. Naruto twirled the stone sword around to hold it in a reverse grip, and prepared to run Jiraiya down before the Sannin could get off any more jutsu. In the split second before Naruto took off, Jiraiya saw something that made him hesitate. That hesitation didn't last long, but it lasted long enough for Naruto to score a large gash across Jiraiya's chest. Jiraiya looked back at Naruto, and thought about what he had seen. Now that he was actively concentrating on it, Jiraiya wondered how he had missed it before. The spiky blonde hair, the way the cloak billowed behind him, the blade held in his hand. Gambling was Tsunade's thing, but Jiraiya was willing to bet that without Sage Mode active, Naruto would have deep blue eyes as well. The Sannin had always wondered how the Toads had found Naruto, and now he had a reasonable guess. Of course. He mused aloud. The night he died, you must have gone back with Game Ubuntu. Your birth would have been kept secret, so nobody would know you were missing. What are you rambling about? Asked Naruto, tightening his grip on the sword that he had learned to create just for the purpose of countering Jiraiya's Sage Mode. You're Minato's son, aren't you? Well. It appears my foolish little brother was foolish enough to actually think he could beat me. Itachi sat on the chair that was traditionally used by the head of the Uchiha clan during meeting in the days of yore. Everything from his closed eyes to his crossed legs radiated confidence that Sasuke was no threat. Allow me to shatter that illusion for you. Before I kill you for what you did, let me ask one thing. Sasuke's Sharingan was active, looking frantically for the genjutsu he knew would be there. He had already dispelled several subtle ones. From Itachi's location being several feet to the left in reality to with his eyes actually watching Sasuke intently. Why? Why did you leave me alone to seek vengeance? Any Uchiha would be able to achieve these eyes. Why me? Let me tell you why, said Itachi as Sasuke unraveled the genjutsu around him silently. Long ago, these same eyes were awoken by a pair of brothers much like today. Madara Uchiha and his younger brother Izuna were geniuses the likes of which the world may never see again, so it should be no surprise that they achieved the ultimate level of Sharingan, using it to climb to the top of the ninja world. But by using their eyes, Madara found out the price of this power. What price? Asked Sasuke. And what does it have to do with us? The Mangekyo Sharingan gives greater light than any eye known to man, but the candle that burns twice as bright lasts half as long. The price for that light is a slow descent into eternal darkness. Said Itachi as his black eyes slowly turned into the red of the Sharingan, then into the Mangekyo Sharingan that had haunted Sasuke's dreams for years. As the Mangekyo Sharingan is used more and more, the user's vision slowly degrades, until blindness claims them. What? Sasuke's eyes widened in shock. To the user of a visual jutsu like the Sharingan, sight was prized above all else. To lose it would be unthinkable. How far has your vision degraded? I would have had to forego use of my eyes soon to prevent further decay. But that means nothing now, said Itachi as the corners of his mouth slowly curled upwards. Did you never wonder why Madara was feared as one of the most powerful ninja to ever live, while his brother Izuna, who achieved the same level of Sharingan, is never mentioned? Because Madara found a way to restore his sight. The only way to escape the darkness is to take the light of another. And if the donors are not closely related, the transplant will likely fail. Do you see now? You'll be my new light, Sasuke. Sasuke spun around quickly as Itachi disappeared from the throne, barely blocking the kunai sweeping at his back. Itachi twisted his grip on the kunai, lunging forward with a stab at Sasuke. The younger brother reached down and pulled out his sword, blocking the tip of the kunai with the flat of his blade. Itachi dropped the knife to grab hold of Sasuke's arm, jumping up to deliver a strike with his feet. The kick was also blocked by Sasuke moving his sword slightly, but Itachi simply used it as a platform to kick Sasuke with his other leg. The young Uchiha's Sharingan spun wildly as time seemed to slow. Sasuke bent backwards, using Itachi's grip against him to throw him across the room. When Itachi skidded to a halt and looked at his younger brother, Mangekyo Sharingan looked at each other for the first time in a century. Sasuke bit his thumb to use the sealing tags hidden in his wristbands, and Itachi's hand simply emerged from the Akatsuki cloak with a shuriken between each finger. They threw at the same time, each anticipating the other's throw perfectly. The shuriken collided in midair, knocking each other off course. Sasuke unsealed more shuriken directly into his hands, cutting out the precious seconds wasted when reaching for a kunai pouch. Somehow though, Itachi was keeping pace with him, pulling a seemingly endless amount of shuriken out of the sleeves of his cloak. Neither brother could land to hit the other, and every shuriken was deflected by another. Eventually, Sasuke ran out of shuriken, and used his sword to deflect the last one that Itachi had thrown. It was as if Itachi was still one-upping him, carrying only one more shuriken on purpose, just to rub it in. The two brothers ran at each other, Sasuke aiming high with his sword and Itachi coming in low with just his bare hands. Itachi was a bit faster, and managed to get a firm grip on Sasuke's throat, causing Sasuke to gag as his airway was abruptly closed. Sasuke twisted his grip on his sword, hoping to hit Itachi through the pain, but Itachi's other hand delivered a powerful punch to the stomach, driving any air Sasuke still had from his lungs and driving him into the wall so hard he left a small crater. Before he could blink, Itachi was in front of him. Sasuke tried to hit Itachi away and get some breathing space, but the older brother grabbed Sasuke's wrist and held it above Sasuke's head. "Soon, I will be able to see the world clearly once more. You shall be the one cast into unending darkness." As he talked, Itachi's other hand slowly came up as if he were pointing at Sasuke's right eye with two fingers. His intentions were far more sinister than the harmless pokes on the forehead he had always given Sasuke as a child though. The pain was probably the worst part. Right behind it was seeing Itachi's bloody hand pull back, clutching the Mangekyo Sharingan before placing it in a small glass canister filled with some kind of liquid. Sasuke wasn't one to just roll over and die though, and he struck out again with his other hand. Itachi moved to deflect that attack as well, but pulled back when it lit up with lightning. He landed on the other side of the room, using the time to place the stolen eye inside his Akatsuki cloak. Sasuke's hand was held up against his empty eye socket as he gasped in pain. Ignoring the blood dripping down his face, Sasuke gathered a large amount of his chakra in his remaining eye in a desperate ploy. Hoping he was right, Sasuke looked Itachi dead in the eye and released the chakra in one burst. Color bled out of reality, making the whole world white and black before it shattered into a million pieces. Sasuke stood in the middle of the chamber again, and Itachi still sat in the throne, looking mildly surprised. The only blood on Sasuke's face was a small dribble from his left eye, as if it had been crying the red liquid instead of tears. "I didn't think you would be able to see through my genjutsu, let alone break out of it. And to copy the Tsukuyomi after seeing it only once would require a very powerful Sharingan. I must say though, yours is far less subtle," said Itachi as he looked down at the shackles binding his wrists to the chair. His Mangekyo Sharingan spun wildly and they shattered, revealing unfettered reality. "Would you like some pointers from your big brother about how to use genjutsu properly?" Itachi looked up at Sasuke as he mocked the younger brother, only to find that he wasn't there. A blue light came from the behind Itachi, accompanied by a loud crackling similar to 1,000 birds. "No thanks, I think I've got a handle on it." Itachi leapt from his throne in time to avoid having his head cut off by the Chidori-enhanced sword that sliced through the stone chair. Itachi flipped over in midair, running through some seals as he turned to face Sasuke. Fire style, Grand Fireball. A burst of flames shot out of Itachi's mouth and hurtled down towards Sasuke. The younger Uchiha returned to favor in kind, launching his own flames. The two fireballs were of equal strength, and neither Uchiha had yet to land a hit in reality. Itachi landed upside down on the ceiling so that even though Sasuke stood on the raised dais, Itachi was still higher. "You have grown stronger, little brother. You might have been able to stop the massacre if you were this strong then. But now is a different story. Even if you match my strength, I will climb to even higher heights. This is the fate of a genius. Spare me your speeches, Itachi. I will avenge the clan, and then stop Akatsuki's goals," said Sasuke as he fearlessly looked Itachi dead in the eye. Sasuke jumped up to land on the ceiling across from Itachi, and his hands ran through a series of seals before becoming engulfed in lighting. "No matter what heights you climb to, I'll keep surpassing them until I defeat you." Sasuke ran forward, Mangekyo Sharingan ready to detect any counters Itachi attempted against the Chidori as it dug a trench into the ceiling. "Foolish little brother. Akatsuki's goal is peace, and I will live to see that peace with these eyes." Sasuke's Sharingan noticed the massive buildup of chakra in Itachi's closed right eye. Copying the technique for later, Sasuke immediately cut off to the right, running around Itachi to try and evade the coming attack. Amaterasu. Black flames shot out at Sasuke and a bit of blood leaked out of Itachi's right eye. Fighting through the pain, Itachi kept his eye open to chase down Sasuke with the fire, which had already latched onto the ceiling around Itachi in a semicircle as it followed Sasuke's path. 3/4 of the way, the flames caught up to Sasuke, hitting him square in the back. Thinking he had hit Sasuke, Itachi's eye closed to end both the technique and the pain. With no time to hesitate, Sasuke ripped off his shirt and discarded it, careful not to touch any of the black flames. A shirt was easy to replace. A limb was not. Sasuke grinned all the same, and rammed a lightning-coated fist into the ceiling below him one more time. That was all it took, and Itachi looked around frantically as the section of ceiling Sasuke had cut out with his Chidori broke the rest of the way and began to fall. Sasuke flipped over to land on the roof of the building, and Itachi sprinted in one of the directions that wasn't engulfed in black fire to make his own escape. Looking up at Itachi, Sasuke wiped some blood from below his eye and used it to unseal something from his wristband. In a cloud of smoke, a windmill shuriken appeared in Sasuke's hand. Itachi contorted his body to avoid the massive shuriken, and his Sharingan was able to notice the other one hiding in the shadow of the first. What he didn't see however, was the ninja wire that Sasuke pulled on with a smirk. The rigged shuriken exploded, launching the blades outwards. 6 went in the entirely wrong direction, and 1 missed, but 1 bit deep into Itachi's thigh. The wound was painful, and Itachi winced as he landed heavily on the roof. "Foolish older brother," said Sasuke mockingly. "I don't think I've ever even seen you get as much as a scratch, and yet I've managed to wound you so deeply. I don't think I want to have my vision decay as much as yours must have. Don't worry though, I'll make sure you see the world of peace that will be created when I destroy Akatsuki with my own eyes. You're Minato's son, aren't you?" asked Jiraiya, this time addressing Naruto directly. "I can't believe I didn't make that connection before." "Minato, as in the 4th Hokage and most recently deceased Toad Summoner? I've known about that since I could walk," said Naruto. Jiraiya was stunned. "Then why have you joined Akatsuki? They've done nothing but fight against the very thing your father died for." "I honestly had no idea about how Akatsuki went about their goals when I first joined. Once I learned about what exactly they had planned, well, Akatsuki isn't the kind of group you can just leave. There's no difference between us. You fight for your cause, and I fight for mine. And isn't world peace something worth fighting for?" asked Naruto, raising a finger to his temple. He didn't mind taking a trip down memory lane, knowing that every second he spent arguing ideals with Jiraiya was another second of sage mode the old Sannin wasted. "World peace? Are you stupid? Akatsuki is gathering weapons of mass destruction," shouted Jiraiya. "There's no way anything good can come from giving criminals such power. Because the hidden village system has done such a good job of making a peaceful world," replied Naruto sarcastically. "Don't pretend your hands are any cleaner than mine. You've killed just as many, if not more people than I have. The only difference is who we killed for. I don't belittle the 4th Hokage's sacrifice, but the system he fought for leads only to wars and hate. Sometimes, in order to create something better, the previous failure must be wiped clean." "And what makes you think Akatsuki, a group of violent sociopaths and serial killers, will create a more peaceful system?" asked Jiraiya. "At least the hidden villages make attempts at peace. The group of Akatsuki could care less about world peace, you're right. But the leader of Akatsuki is more powerful than all of us, more powerful than you could believe, and he plans to personally lead the world out of war," said Naruto. "He's a god. Forgive me if I don't believe in divine intervention on your behalf," retorted Jiraiya. "He won't succeed, no matter how strong of a man he is. He's still just a man." "That's where you're right actually. He calls himself a god, but he really isn't. He is however, completely justified in his delusions of grandeur. I did some research, and found out what he has that sets him apart from the rest of us. From one Toad Summoner to another, I'll tell you, since I won't be in any condition to tell you if I lose, and you won't be telling anyone if I win. The bloodline he hasn't been seen in over a millennium, and I was only able to uncover its name. It's the same power used by the legendary Sage of Six Paths." Naruto watched as Jiraiya gasped in shock and his eyes widened in surprise. "The Rinnegan? Nagato?" Jiraiya was in a state of disbelief. "I don't know who Nagato is, but our leader calls himself Pain," said Naruto tilting his head a bit in confusion. "Who is Nagato?" "He was my student years ago, one I thought was the child of prophecy. He too, had the Rinnegan. I thought he was dead, along with Yahiko and Konan," said Jiraiya, horrified at the implications of Nagato being alive. Naruto wasn't blind to the implications either. The prophecy is already coming true. Whether or not he dooms the world or saves it, it looks like I was right. Akatsuki will be the winning side here. I've never heard the names Yahiko or Nagato, but Konan at least lives. She's a member of Akatsuki as well actually. Akatsuki might be the winning side, but that doesn't mean you'll be there when the prophecy comes true. Jiraiya leapt forward, rearing back his fist to strike at Naruto as he did. Do you never learn? Asked Naruto as he dodged the straightforward jab and the aura of sage chakra surrounding it. He swung up with the sword, slicing Jiraiya cleanly in half. His smirk stayed for only a second before the Sannin disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as Jiraiya's chakra simply disappeared. Actually, I do. Naruto wheeled around at the sound of Jiraiya's voice which, according to his chakra sensing skill, came from absolute nothingness. Without the knowledge of Jiraiya's actual location, Naruto was unable to dodge the punch that knocked the stone sword from his grasp and deadened his arm. Jiraiya's left hand shot out to hold Naruto's other hand to prevent any other counterattacks. You hid from my sage mode? Naruto looked at the Sannin who was very much right in front of him, despite still not having any chakra. How? I'm full of tricks, and natural chakra. By venting it out at the right frequency, I just fade into the background. Jiraiya raised his hand up in front of Naruto's face, holding a regularly sized Rasengan. The red marks beneath his eyes faded to their normal straight lines down his face, signifying the end of his sage mode. You're not in sage mode any longer, but I can go for days, months, years. That attack will barely sting, said Naruto, slightly worried about how thoroughly outmaneuvered he had been, but confident in the defensive prowess of sage mode against an attack that didn't have any natural chakra in it at all. This isn't what I'm going to hit you with. The Rasengan actually isn't complete. I had given up on it, but I decided to try and finish it once I heard about you always being in sage mode. I've tested it on myself, and even in sage mode, I barely survived this. Jiraiya's hand snapped down to his side, and the blue Rasengan became pitch black with a fiery aura around it. Jiraiya's hand was clearly burning up just from being near such powerful chakra. Take this. Hellfire Rasengan. The attack slammed into Naruto's gut and the impact actually tore him out of Jiraiya's grip. Not that he could do much with his free arm, as he was sent flying, leaving a flaming trench in his wake. Jiraiya had just started to apply some ointment that he had Tsunade prepare beforehand to his horribly burned arm when the Hellfire Rasengan destabilized. The result was a pillar of fire that stretched into the sky, incinerating everything in a half-mile radius. Despite his self-inflicted injuries, Jiraiya grinned at his success. Even for someone in sage mode, the attack was painful and debilitating. The Sannin sat down and meditated for a short time, entering a sort of sage mode that would expire quickly. Its imperfection shone through in the large number of toad-like qualities, from the wart-covered nose to the slightly webbed feet. The pathetic excuse for sage mode would do just fine to let Jiraiya ignore his injuries temporarily and finish of the younger sage if he was still alive. Deidara looked up at the massive column of fire that darkened the sky as the light it emitted shone brighter than the sun for a brief moment. She raised an arm and squinted to try and get a better look, but it didn't help much. Not that there would have been anything to see, just a large cylinder of fire that's heat could be felt from over where she was. Oh no you don't, mumbled Deidara under her breath as her bird flew to the violently cleared section of forest. I just finished saving you and I am not going to do it again. Yeah. Honestly, if he was still alive, Deidara was going to beat some survival instincts into Naruto's thick skull. Honestly, she could have sworn, he had nearly died more times than he'd done. She landed in the center of the fiery destruction's aftermath, looking around for her partner. She found him, badly burned, hacking up equal parts smoke and blood, in the center of the crater. Goddamn! What happened here, yeah? She jumped off her claim out to head down to Naruto's side. You gave as good as you got, right? Deidara. Naruto stopped to cough up more blood onto his tattered and burned Akatsuki cloak. Get away. His short message delivered, Naruto faded into unconsciousness. Deidara grunted with the effort of carefully lifting Naruto into her bird's beak gently so as to not worsen his injuries. Just as her bird began to take off a bit, Naruto's opponent appeared. Deidara was by no stretch of the imagination a censor, but she had been alongside this chakra signature for years, and the idea that it had managed to hurt Naruto this badly suddenly made sense. I'll have to ask you to stop right there. I'd hate to have to kill such a pretty lady. Deidara flinched at that last line and slowly turned to see a white-haired old geezer who looked like he was part frog. He stood tall and proud, though the right sleeve of his red outfit looked like it had been burned off, and he had a large cut across his chest. All in all, he was acting far more confident than anyone as ugly and beat up as he was had any right to. "Back off, you old geezer. I'm getting my partner out of here, and I won't lose any sleep over killing you to do it if I have to, yeah," said Deidara, subtly moving her right hand into the clay pouch on her waist. "So you are Akatsuki. Shame too, you would have been quite the looker in a couple of years," said Jiraiya, sinking down to all fours and preparing to hop at her. "In a couple years," yelled Deidara indignantly. "The hell is that supposed to mean, yeah?" Deidara almost flinched as the old toad man jumped at her like, well, a toad. She wasn't in rank ninja for nothing though, and waited until the last second to throw a large clay snake at him. It bent and writhed in midair to ensnare Jiraiya before exploding violently. When the smoke cleared, Jiraiya stood mostly unharmed, though the same couldn't be said for his clothing. Jiraiya looked up to see the bird carrying Naruto flying away. Deidara hurried to infuse her chakra into some more clay, a task that had become easier with only 2 parasites to deal with, but Jiraiya's hands were faster still. Sage Art, Flame Bullet. The fireball was extremely small and streamlined, but it was incredibly fast and very accurate. Deidara feared that the Sannin was aiming at her, but the attack missed by a mile. A second later, the truth behind the S-rank ninja's terrible aim became apparent when Deidara saw the flaming projectile hit her bird's wing, triggering a premature detonation. With Naruto in its beak. Several hundred feet in the air. "Naruto!" shouted Deidara before turning to face the old man who had turned his attention back to her. She hurriedly threw a swarm of white locusts at her attacker, which exploded at different intervals, creating a wall of detonations that enveloped the Sannin. When Jiraiya could see something other than red flames and hear something other than a cacophony of booms, the blonde Akatsuki member had disappeared. It would have been a simple matter to track her with Sage Mode, but the current imperfect Sage Mode he was in was never intended to be anything more than a quick patch job for short bursts of exertion. He finally ran out of Sage Chakra, and his own reserves were running too low to safely gather more. The exhaustion of the tasks he had accomplished in Sage Mode caught up with him all at once, and he almost succumbed to unconsciousness. He had inflicted enough pain to Akatsuki, and he had rightfully beaten Naruto in single combat before his partner had interfered. That would have to do for today, he thought as he limped off to recover from his wounds. Deidara emerged from underground in the general vicinity of where Naruto would have crashed. If the old man from before was chasing her, she didn't have long to search, and if his technique was the same as Naruto's he would find them both immediately. She looked frantically, ignoring most conventional tactics in favor of faster methods. Minutes of searching later, and she had turned up nothing, not even a scrap of the infamously sturdy Akatsuki cloak. Although occurred to her in horror as she heard the burbling sound of water in the background in a moment of quiet after a loud noise and a bright flash. She rushed to the stream, and sure enough, Naruto's tattered Akatsuki cloak had snagged on a branch near the bank. Searching the vicinity for the body was fruitless, and she could only conclude that the stream had carried of her partner's body. Hopefully his still alive body. She flew up, and ignored the completely wrecked Uchiha hideout, looking instead at the waterfall that went almost immediately into a cavern not far from where Naruto had presumably fallen into the water. A tear most certainly did not fall down her cheek and into the water below because rank ninja did not cry. It was just undignified, no matter how close you were to the partner that had just died. "I see you've let such an inconsequential victory go to your head, foolish little brother. You are welcome to my eyes, but only if you are strong enough to take them." Itachi's face was broken by an insane smile as his Mangekyo Sharingan began to bleed once more. Realizing what Itachi was planning, Sasuke channeled chakra to his own right eye and released it in the exact moment Itachi did, getting the timing perfect with his own Sharingan. The brothers' black flames collided in between them, burning everything they touched, including each other. Bits of fire overshot the other wall of black flames, igniting the forests on the terraced mountain. The size discrepancy was due to the smaller amount of chakra that Sasuke had put into his Amaterasu, and the movement of the brothers to try and get out of the way in case their fire lost. In the end, the black fires burned each other into nothingness, except where they had caught onto the trees that had grown on the previously well-kept terraces of the Uchiha hideout. "It appears we are more even than I thought," said Itachi appreciatively. "You have taken to those eyes faster than I anticipated." "I'm just copying Big Brother," said Sasuke, smirking a bit despite his chakra exhaustion. Both brothers looked to the left as a massive pillar of flames erupted into the sky. While it was good for Sasuke personally, he didn't know anyone formed the hidden leaf that could cause such destruction, which left the horrible option that one of his allies had been on the receiving end of that attack courtesy of Akatsuki. "I thought I warned you to come alone," said Itachi, capitalizing on Sasuke's fears to draw out more anger. In truth though, Itachi wasn't aware of anyone other than himself and perhaps Kakuzu who could perform such high-level fire-style techniques. Not that the fact that it was likely a technique used by a hidden leaf ninja would stop Itachi from twisting it to serve his own ends. "It looks like someone is paying the price for your inability to listen." Sasuke glared at Itachi as if looks could kill, which they could in a fight like this. "I might have been learning how to use my new eyes from you before, but now I'm going to show you something I came up with on my own. Not even your Sharingan will be able to keep up with this attack. It will over in a flash, which is more than you deserve. Now, die in a clap of thunder." Sasuke summoned a hawk during his boast, and his hand began to crackle with lightning. The lightning shot up into the clouds created by the Amaterasu and the mysterious pillar of flames from before, and they began to spark with barely contained potential. "Kirin." Sasuke brought his hand down, and Itachi's eyes widened in horror. Despite the speed of the technique and the decay of his vision, Itachi was perfectly capable of seeing the mythical creature made of lightning descend upon him. And in that millisecond, he reacted. Sasuke panted in exhaustion as he looked at the ruin of his Kirin. It had unleashed even more destruction than last time, and the mountain had mostly been leveled into a field of rubble. The only notable exception was the wall he was currently flying above that was proudly emblazoned with the Uchiha crest. He descended to ground level, and then his eyes widened in shock when he saw it. Itachi was struggling to his feet, obviously wounded, but very much alive. "Foolish little brother." Itachi paused to cough up a massive amount of blood into his hands before continuing. "I have yet to show you the ultimate technique of our eyes." Sasuke reactivated his Sharingan, copying Itachi as he channeled a massive amount of chakra to both of his eyes. The older Uchiha was cloaked in a fiery red aura, which took on the form of a skeleton's upper torso. The skeleton form lasted only a moment as muscle and skin made of chakra quickly covered the warrior that surrounded Itachi. That stage was quickly covered by armor and clothing, leaving only the glowing yellow eyes of the red warrior visible. Sasuke tried to copy the technique, but his purple spectral warrior failed to get more than one arm covered by muscle and skin, leaving him with a mostly skeletal horn protector with glowing yellow eyes. "Foolish little brother, you don't have nearly enough hate to use this technique as well as I can. This Susanoo is fueled by my rage at our clan, my hatred of the village, and most of all, my loathing of you. Thinking you were allowed to live because you were special, robbing me of my time so we could play, I abhorred you above all in this world. It pained me to let you live all those years ago, but it is a mistake I will now rectify." Tears streamed down Sasuke's face at Itachi's words. He had always held out some belief that Itachi had once been the kind brother he remembered, and that some part of him still had the brotherly love. A scream of rage and betrayal that had been stored up for years tore itself out of Sasuke's throat, and his Susanoo became covered entirely in skin and muscle, even gaining a bow in its right hand. Vision blurred by his use of the Mangekyo Sharingan and his tears, Sasuke's Susanoo loosed an arrow at Itachi, whose Susanoo simply raised a shield to block it. The arrow simply dispersed into energy as it impacted the red shield. Sasuke cried blood alongside his tears as black flames shot out of his Susanoo to impact Itachi's, though they had little more effect than his arrow. Itachi limped towards Sasuke, and his Susanoo raised its two right hands. The lower one held a jug, out of which a fiery liquid burst forth. The second hand grabbed onto the aura, grasping it like a sword, which it used to deflect another one of Sasuke's arrows. The sword descended, and though Sasuke tried to block it with his Susanoo, the blade cut off the arm he raised to block it with. The arm fell to the ground with a thud, before fading into nothingness. Itachi raised the sword again, and Sasuke tried to take advantage of the opening by launching a punch at red opposing Susanoo. It impacted harmlessly against the shield that Itachi's Susanoo carried though, and the sword fell unimpeded. This time, the horned head of Sasuke's Susanoo fell to the ground, and as it faded, his Susanoo receded as well. The technique seemed to be taking its toll on Itachi as well, however, as he gripped his chest in pain and coughed up more blood. The Susanoo receded to its basic skeleton frame, and Itachi slowly limped towards his little brother, hand raised to rip out the younger Uchiha's eyes. Sasuke backed up in fear until his back hit the wall, though by the time Itachi reached him the red Susanoo had faded to a simple red aura around Itachi. Sasuke cowered as Itachi came within grabbing distance, and despite all his rage at Itachi and Akatsuki, all his plans, Sasuke despaired and resigned himself to his fate. Then something unexpected happened. Itachi keeled forward the remaining distance, hitting Sasuke in the forehead instead of the eyes. The older Uchiha's vision must have been truly terrible at this point to miss like that. As Itachi collapsed to the ground, hacking up clots of blood, Sasuke could have sworn he heard Itachi whisper something. "Sorry Sasuke. It ends like this." Kisame reached the scene a minute later, a tad worried for his partner after seeing the massive bolt of lightning that had descended on the Uchiha hideout and blown it to smithereens. He had of course waited until the fighting had died down to prevent Itachi getting angry at him for disrupting the fight, but by the time he arrived, neither Uchiha was present. What happened? Pain's question sounded more like an accusation, though his voice didn't fluctuate at all. It was the first time in years that Akatsuki had met without a tailed beast in the middle, but it was also the first time they had lost a member since Kakuzu had gained a partner that refused to die. Itachi wanted to settle the score with his little brother alone, so we all stayed out of it. Some powerful techniques were used, and when the dust settled, neither were there, explained Kisame. The shark wasn't really broken up over Itachi's death, but it was one of the few times he didn't at least crack a grin at someone dying. That explains why Itachi is absent. Pain turned to Deidara, and his unspoken question caused her shoulders to sag. Naruto ran into Jiraiya of the Sannin, yeah. The other Akatsuki members looked surprised that he had fought someone of such renown. Out of all of them though, Pain seemed the most distressed. It still wasn't much, but for some reason, the mention of Jiraiya had surprised him. "I couldn't find him. He's probably dead." "He isn't," responded Pain, voice showing no emotion. "Wait, what?" asked Deidara. Realizing how that could be interpreted as disrespectful, she quickly elaborated. "How can you know that? You weren't even there." "Yeah." Pain held up his right thumb, and though it was merely a shadowy projection, they all knew that was the location of his ring. These rings do more than allow communication. "Naruto is alive, Itachi is not. Kisame, you need to find Itachi's body and retrieve his ring. He is roughly 30 miles north of where you are now. Sasori knows who your new partner will be. Deidara, Naruto is several hundred miles northeast." The Akatsuki members all looked to their own rings in surprise. None of them had had any idea that the rings could do that, though it never really had come up before. "So are you watching us all the time?" asked Hidan. "'Cause sometimes I do things I would like to remain private. Like killing, and praying, and sacrificing, and taking a shit." Before Hidan could continue, Pain cut him off rather quickly. They only allow communication, assess the life of the wearer, and reveal position relative to the other rings. Pain looked rather annoyed at the loudmouthed immortal. Nothing else. "Wait a second," said Deidara in thought. "Right now, the only thing to the northeast is ocean. So Naruto's just floating out at sea?" Kakuzu was the one to answer that. "If he's moving, it's likely he was picked up by a ship. Speaking of that vicinity, could we ask a favor? First Itachi and now you? Man, when did I stop being a green behind the ears newbie, yeah?" said Deidara, a bit surprised. "What is it?" "Well, Hidan and I arrived at the Hidden Cloud Village, only to discover they had moved him recently to an island in that area. Apparently it was never mapped, and no vessel will head out to an unknown island for anything less than an unacceptable amount. I'm just asking you to keep your eyes peeled for the Jinchuriki while you're out gathering your partner," grunted Kakuzu. "Hidan and I will keep looking for any information on where the island actually is in the meantime." "So they've hidden their Jinchuriki away, huh?" grumbled Sasori. "I suppose it only makes sense, since he is the Raikage's brother and all. Once Zetsu and I get our Jinchuriki, we'll assist in digging up any information. We should be there by tomorrow. The Hidden Waterfall Village has a frustrating lack of entrances aside from the main one. I got out through a cave underwater connecting two lakes, one outside and one inside the village, when I left," said Kakuzu gruffly. It was obvious he didn't enjoy bringing up his former village, but anything that got Akatsuki in was good for him. "A lot for traveling underground, thank you very much," retorted Zetsu sarcastically. "Lighten up. We never get to go swimming," complained Zetsu. "Because we can't swim. We drown." "Oh yeah. Then we are decided. Soon Akatsuki's goal will be realized. Sasori, Zetsu, I'd like to have a word with you alone." Pain's decision was strange, but it was effective in getting all but him and the spy masters to drop out of the meeting as quickly as possible. Naruto shot upright, blue eyes darting around frantically for any danger. He winced when a voice next to him bellowed out. "This is not the kind of alarm that is fake, our mystery patient is finally awake." Naruto sighed and lay down once more, resigning himself to the hallucinations. Or hell, it could be either. Yo Mr. 9, when we found you, you weren't looking fine. Oh yeah, right. Where are my manners? You must have questions demanding answers. I'm the cloud's last Jinchuriki. With 8 great tails, I'm the rapping killer bee. Naruto's head throbbed as he tried to decipher the terrible rap being shouted at him. His mind sifted the information, and he shot straight up at one important bit of information this killer bee had let slip. What did you mean, Mr. 9? And you're a Jinchuriki? Moaned Naruto as another person ran into the room. B, you really shouldn't let information like that out so easily. He could be an enemy. Naruto was almost glad to see someone reasonable, even if that person was against him. Now that he had a moment to look around, Naruto noticed the hidden cloud headbands. Clearly, he would need to fabricate some story to keep himself alive until he was fighting fit again. Come on Motoi, lighten up a bit. Bro, to lie would be unfit. Killer Bee turned to Naruto, luckily misinterpreting Naruto's groan as one of pain. We found you floating out at sea, in a pool of demonic chakra, yes sirree. You were identified as a Jinchuriki, by the great Mr. 8, and the mighty Killer Bee. Yeah. Naruto had heard of tailed beasts healing their host of wounds subconsciously, and he silently cursed the fox for selling him out. So why are you being so nice to me? You could have just left me adrift. The person Killer Bee had identified as Motoi was the one who responded to that, arms crossed to show his disapproval. Trust me, a lot of us wanted to, but Bee calls the shots on this kind of thing, and he said we should pull you out of the water. You were most certainly not a marauder. Motoi deadpan Killer Bee's rap, which didn't do much to affect the overall quality. I've been hidden away on this island you see, to protect from a group called Akatsuki. They've been hunting Jinchuriki. They even got poor Yugito ni. When I saw you floating in that chakra soup, I figured you were on the run from that nasty group. Naruto realized that at this point, trying to deny being a Jinchuriki wouldn't work, so he decided to play the hunted Jinchuriki card for all it was worth. Yeah, I thought they got me back then, but I guess this stupid-tailed beast is good for something. Thanks for not letting me die. I'm Naruto. Naruto hesitated before giving his real name, but he figured that he had never actually met anyone from the hidden cloud who would know him as a member of Akatsuki, and he guessed that he would be less likely to slip up than with a fake name. Nice to meet you Naruto. You should talk about the fox with more respect though. Rapped Killer Bee, bouncing to a beat only he could hear. They aren't just some chakra to be used, they're living breathing creatures that have been abused. Naruto was a tad skeptical of Killer Bee's statement, and even though it was a bad idea to criticize his host, Naruto couldn't let it slide as either a sage or in his role as a helpless Jinchuriki. The tailed beasts are nothing but trouble. 9 tails or 8, it doesn't make a difference. Didn't your tailed beast just save your life? That's proof they're looking for more than strife. Retorted Killer Bee, pushing his sunglasses to his face with a single finger. It was likely just to try and look cool though, since his sunglasses appeared to just be glued on anyways. Akatsuki wouldn't be hunting us if we weren't Jinchuriki. My life wouldn't have needed saving. Countered Naruto. Despite his argument though, Naruto figured that he would have fought Jiraiya anyway, Jinchuriki or not. And without the 9 tails apparently healing him, Jiraiya would be the only toad summoner alive. In a way, B was right. He would have joined Akatsuki regardless, and Jiraiya would have utterly destroyed him regardless, but without the 9 tails, he wouldn't have a second shot at it all. The tailed beasts are more than just means to an end, with the right kind of prodding they can become great friends, yeah. Rapped Killer Bee. Motoi swooped in and interrupted the conversation before it turned into a fight between Jinchuriki. Even with one of them injured, fights between Jinchuriki were never good for anyone nearby. B, leave the kid alone. Naruto almost punched the guy for calling him a kid, but they were his hosts for now, so he let it slide. He's still recovering most likely, and he's probably hungry. B perked up at the mention of food, and even Naruto couldn't deny that some food sounded really good. Of course I almost forgot the essentials. Food and drink are fundamental. Naruto had a horrible feeling that by the time he made it back to Akatsuki, he would be thinking in rhyme. Sasori supposed he would look terrifying to anyone, emerging from under the water, scowling as it ran off of his puppet shell. In reality, he was equal parts happy and furious. On one hand, he and Zetsu were now inside the hidden waterfall village, a place Sasori reminded himself to get more spies in. On the other, getting all this water out of his puppets would be a pain if he wanted to prevent rusting. But he would get some new puppets today from their decimation of the hidden waterfall, so it all balanced out. Who goes there? Shouted a waterfall chunin who had spotted the shady figure. We know who it is. Unless you want him attack us, shut up. Black Zetsu's voice coming from the disguised Akatsuki member did indeed calm Sasori's nerves a bit, and he relaxed the threads on his puppet's tail a bit. "Did you locate the Jinchuriki?" growled Sasori, a tad annoyed that his partner hadn't just informed him that they would be disguised. He was well aware of White Zetsu's ability to assume the appearance of anyone whose chakra he had absorbed, but it was still disconcerting that the master puppeteer couldn't tell the difference between Zetsu and the real deal, even when he knew which was which. "Yeah, she's actually hiding up on top of that huge tree. We shouldn't even need your help, but you can just stay down here and draw attention from us," exclaimed Zetsu. With clones, the element of surprise, and the famous wood style, Zetsu probably didn't need any help fighting one little girl, but Jinchuriki fights usually got messy. And no village would willingly part with their tailed beast, especially a smaller village that needed every scrap of power they could get. "Alright, just remember the plan. I'll be drawing some attention down here on the ground." If Sasori could show emotions naturally on Hiruko's face, his joy would have been obvious. Instead his smile looked more like a scowl. "I think it's time I give the hidden waterfall a little performance." Fu sat on one of the higher-up branches of the large tree that produced the hero's water. Most of the village despised her as the Jinchuriki of the tailed beast that destroyed the village every time it escaped. Still, the Seven Tails was one of the village's only claims to fame, and they would never let it actually escape for long. The upper branches were a place only she could reach, and even she needed the wings given by the Seven Tails to reach it. Not many ninja could fly. A sharp snap of a smaller twig alerted her to a presence behind her, and she immediately took to the air as two wings made of demonic chakra sprouted from the small of her back. Wheeling around, she saw a strange person half fused to the tree with large Venus flytrap-like protrusions on either side. "How did we break a twig? We don't even have feet yet," raged the strange ninja as he emerged from the tree limb entirely. "Sorry, but I'm just lucky like that," said the green-haired Jinchuriki with a smirk. "Lucky number 7 I guess. I'd ask you who you are and what you want, but it can't be good for me if I got warned about you." "Oh, I'm Zetsu and we're here to capture you and extract the tailed beast," shouted the ninja in a much lighter voice than before. Fu tilted her head in confusion as Zetsu apparently berated himself in the deeper voice from before. "Moron. Don't just hand out information like that." "Wait, you can extract the Seven Tails from me?" exclaimed Fu. The prospect of even a semi-normal life was incredibly appealing, and she honestly didn't care what the village thought about handing away their greatest weapon. "Well yeah, but it'll kill you. Just shut up." Fu might not want to live with the tailed beast sealed inside her, but it beat dying without the tailed beast. "I think I'll pass, but thanks for the offer." Fu's wings snapped shut and she plummeted down to the relative safety of the village. Until about halfway down the tree when she landed on a branch that hadn't been there before. Zetsu emerged from the tree branch in front of her, but this time, there was something different about him. Sorry if this wasn't clear, but no isn't an option. It struck her just as it became too late. The Zetsu in front of her was missing the white half. The location of White Zetsu became apparent when 3 of him emerged from the tree at her feet and tried to hold her down. Fu struggled with her wings, but the Zetsu clones were still fused with the large tree, and their roots held her firmly in place. An explosion of demonic chakra and Fu was free, now with an actual tail made of the demon's chakra. 3 Tails was pushing her control, but the extra limb was invaluable in avoiding of destroying the wood that seemed to branch off of the main trunk and chase her with a mind of its own. She spun around to see Zetsu rejoin and meld into the tree limb once more. Fu wouldn't try such a reckless descent this time, and she decided to head back to the village a bit slower this time. It was a decision that she almost immediately regretted however, as large splinters shot up from below her, almost puncturing her wings. Fu dodged frantically, and landed on the trunk of the tree for cover. White Zetsu clone sprung out almost immediately, and she ran away as quickly as she could, her one actual tail smashing any clones that got too close. Suddenly, a cage of wood spiraled out of the trunk, and Zetsu emerged from the tree in front of her. "You should just give up already. You can't win." "Aw, but this is fun." Fu was tempted to just give up, but then her phenomenal luck kicked in. From below, a massive flame dragon shot up, and in a 1 in a million chance, hit her directly. Covered as she was in tailed beast chakra, the flames didn't do much to hurt her, but her wooden prison was burned to a crisp. Weakened as it was, the wood-style prison had no chance against her chakra tail. Fu made a dash at the real Zetsu, but several clones of White Zetsu jumped in front of her blow to give the original time to escape. Deciding to stay away from the tree, Fu flew out over the village, taking care to avoid the fighting at the base of the tree. There seemed to be a large number of ninja that were just flying for no real reason, going up against what appeared to be all the ninja in the village. Techniques of all kinds were flying, and most were missing terribly, flying up to the tree like the one that had hit her. Touching down in some back alley, Fu dropped her chakra as low as she could to try and hide from the fight. Despite being a Jinchuriki, she was never really one for fighting, preferring to just run away until she got lucky enough for her problems to solve themselves. Her plan of hiding didn't last long though, when someone dropped down in front of her. Fu. Thank God you're alright. These terrifying ninja called Akatsuki are trying to capture you. We need to get you to safety. Fu recognized the Chunin before her as one of her tormentors when she was younger, but she supposed that monsters like Zetsu would be inspiration for even enemies to work together, even if it was just for the village's strength. She was saved when a particularly large jutsu caused the entire village to shake a bit. A large ceramic flower pot fell off a windowsill several stories up, and nailed the waterfall ninja in the head. His eyes rolled back into his head and he collapsed to the ground. Fu gasped in shock as his shoulder-length dark hair receded to a short green haircut, and his tanned skin became as white as a sheet. In a second she was looking at another Zetsu clone. She sighed in relief as her almost legendary luck held true once more. She hit as more waterfall ninja rounded the corner, wary now of any transformed Zetsu clones. It was obvious that as long as she stayed in the village, she wouldn't be able to get away from these Akatsuki people. With the village in disarray from its first invasion and forever, she would never have an opportunity to leave the village like this again. Her luck held until she reached the entrance to the village, and she met no more Zetsu clones along the way. Then she got to the actual entrance to the caves that led out of the village, and her luck let her down for the first time in her life. Where the entrance to the cave should have been was a wall of black that was both smooth and gritty at the same time. It was likely the work of some other member of Akatsuki, or she had grievously underestimated what Zetsu could do. When I heard that this village produced kakuzu, I was eager to get my hands on some decent pieces to turn into art. Fu whirled around at the voice behind her. He wore an identical cloak to the one Zetsu had, and he slowly approached her in a shuffling gait that didn't look like any human could replicate. Little did I realize he was obviously an exception to the rule. I don't think I lost a single piece of my work. Maybe a Jinchuriki's body will make for better canvas. As he spoke and approached her, she backed up slowly until she was almost touching the black wall of sand behind her. Without further fanfare, the hunchback in front of her struck out with a metal tail of some kind that moved incredibly fast. She barely had time to hit the ground as it smashed into the wall where her head had just been. She pulled out some shuriken and threw them at the Akatsuki member, who brought his tail back to coil around him and deflect the shuriken. All Fu had been going for was a second to herself though, and the shuriken got her that. Hiding in the scale powder. After a short set of seals, Fu breathed out a large amount of dust that glittered in the sunlight. The flash was blinding by anyone's standards, but Fu had the foreknowledge to close her eyes. While her opponent was still blinded, Fu took to the skies once more. It would appear he luck had held once more, and she would get away. Until Zetsu showed up again. TSK. You shouldn't try to run away like that. Where would you even go? There are very few Jinchuriki left. Nowhere would be safe. Zetsu's speech was accompanied by him grabbing her ankle and holding her down. She struggled against his grip, but it was surprisingly strong. More Zetsu clones grew out of the cliff face next to the original, grabbing her as well. Her third tail sprouted, but it was useless in the face of such numbers. Zetsu's eyes widened as he saw something behind her, and the clones were quick to follow suit and let go. More fire struck Fu's back, and though she was still protected a bit by the Seven Tails chakra, she had never really kept Three Tails out for so long. Fire on top of acidic chakra burning her skin was not appreciated. She turned to see who had tried to roast her, only to see one of the most handsome men she had ever laid eyes on. Despite his rather impressive first impression, saving her from Zetsu and then being absolutely gorgeous, her mystery savior was actually quite damaged. He was covered in injuries that hadn't quite healed, and his left eye was covered in bandages. His clothes were either torn or covered in so much blood it was impossible to tell what color they had once been. Blood was running down his face as if the eye had recently been torn out, and even his hawk seemed tired. Good, I'm not too late. Fu wasn't sure if he was talking or her or himself, but his eye, which she had just noticed was blood red, was trained on Zetsu and the other Akatsuki member. You should. Just leave now, before I have to kill you both. Please. Grunted the tailed Akatsuki member. You barely have enough chakra to keep standing. You might have beaten Itachi, but it's clear that you were severely injured in the process. You're no match for us. Sasuke Uchiha. Maybe not, but I don't have to fight you, do I? Said Sasuke, tiredly smirking at the two Akatsuki members. Now witness the Great Hawk escape. His hawk beat its wing furiously, flying into Fu with a grand crash and disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Sasuke grabbed Fu's hand, and before they could hit the ground, they too disappeared to the home of the Hawks. Sasori turned to Zetsu and sighed. Are you sure about this? Zetsu looked back and grinned, at least half of him did. The other half scowled in annoyance. Orders are orders. Pain said to let our Jinchuriki escape if the Uchiha came. Besides, I liked her. Sasori was still unconvinced. They had striven to capture all the tailed beasts as quickly as they could, but now that the goal was within their grasp, Pain was not only content with letting the Jinchuriki escape, but ordering it. Not that Sasori personally cared, but no one advocated the final plan more strongly than Akatsuki's leader. Regardless, there were some passable ninja back there. I'm going to get some puppets out of this, you can have the rest, said Sasori, turning his back on the iron sand wall as it dissolved and flowed back into Hiruko. Zetsu hurriedly followed, half of him gleefully anticipating the feast Sasori had prepared for him. Who are you? Asked Fu incredulously. The mysterious man who had saved her, who upon a second look couldn't have been much older than her, stood up shakily. Sasuke Uchiha. Both Jinchuriki and Uchiha flinched at the loud screech that echoed through the cloud-breaking spires. Fu turned to look for the source of the noise, and was ought to see a large hawk glaring at the two of them. Large was likely an understatement, as the large bird was roughly the size of a tailed beast. What is an outsider doing here? Sasuke was slightly taken aback, as he honestly hadn't foreseen the hawk's anger when he planned out his desperate rescue of one of the last Jinchuriki. I had to get her away from Akatsuki. This is all I could think of at the time. It was clear that Sasuke's excuse wasn't going to fly with the matriarch of the Hawks. Outsiders are not allowed. I do not care if our summoner comes here, but any visitors must leave. But Akatsuki won't stop until they capture her. This is likely the only safe place for a Jinchuriki, argued Sasuke. On one hand he understood the Hawk's displeasure, but Akatsuki was just too large of a threat. You mistake me for one who cares. She will leave, one way or another. It was clear to Fu that leaving of her own free will might not be the worst idea. Besides, some hawks ate insects, and Fu didn't want to become part of the menu. Really, I don't have to hang around. I'd hate to be a bother, said Fu with a forced smile to try and relieve some of the tension. Good. At least someone knows when they aren't welcome. With that said, in one last screech, the large hawk flew off to her nest atop the largest spire. Sasuke grit his teeth in equal parts frustration and pain, glaring at the hawk's back with his one good eye. Damn it. I didn't expect this. Where else would be safe? Fu walked up behind him and tapped the brooding hawk summoner on the shoulder. I'm not some kind of fragile glassware, you know. I don't need protecting, I just need to stay away from people in black cloaks with red clouds like that Zetsu guy, right? It can't be too hard, especially with a bit of luck. Fu might not have liked the fact that she had a tailed beast sealed into her, but it was kind of nice to succeed in everything with little effort and a lot of luck. Akatsuki is full of far more dangerous people than that plant guy. Naruto, Deidara, Kisame, Hidan, Kakuzu, this was the only place I was sure would be safe. Now I need to think of something else to keep you out of their hands. Fu's eyes widened at the mention of her village's most infamous criminal. Kakuzu? She asked incredulously. Everyone knows Kakuzu isn't real. Even if he was, Kakuzu lived almost 100 years ago, he'd be some feeble old man. If I'm being hunted down by old geezers, I'm pretty sure I got this. What Akatsuki has planned isn't something I can just trust you not to get captured for. They need to be stopped, and we need to keep you safe if we're to stop them. Sasuke looked at her intensely, though thanks to his deteriorating vision, she was a tad fuzzy around the edges. And we aren't welcome here. We need to think of somewhere to go. I'd love to go home, but the Hidden Leaf doesn't want to draw Akatsuki's attention anymore. Oh, you're from the Hidden Leaf? And that hawk called you Uchiha, but I thought you were all dead. Fancy that. Sasuke held up a hand to try and get Fu to quiet down while he thought, and the happy-go-lucky girl sat down to pout a bit. She didn't really like this Uchiha much, but she supposed he had saved her from Zetsu and his partner. Gaara's strong, but he was defeated by Akatsuki already, and he has no real reason to help us. The hidden stone wouldn't help a leaf ninja, and the hidden mist is too unstable. Sasuke's eye opened as he came to the only logical conclusion. We need to head to the hidden cloud village. Whoa there, said Fu, waving both hands in front of her as the Uchiha stood up and whistled. "We're foreign ninja. Even if I went along with you, we'd get killed before we got near the village." Sasuke grinned as he undid the bandages over his left eye and let the fall into his hand. Fu looked into his eyes, and was surprised to see that not only did Sasuke have a left eye, but the strange designs in either eye were slightly different. "I think I can convince them otherwise," he said confidently, before the more complex design of the left eye spun until it matched the right eye and blood came out of the eye. Sasuke fell to the ground grunting in pain and gripping his face. "Damn it, when will these eyes be ready?" "Doesn't matter. We need to get going." Sasuke stood up and reapplied his bandages as a hawk descended next to them. The two climbed onto the bird, which gave a screech as it took off for the village hidden in the clouds, home of the last safe Jinchuriki. "I think I know where Akatsuki's leader is." Tsunade turned in surprise to see Jiraiya. The two Sannin looked at each other for a short time before what Jiraiya said truly sank in. "What?" Of course, once it sank in, Tsunade wouldn't be content with just the information that Jiraiya knew some information. "Where did you learn this?" "Never mind, where is he? We could plan a surprise attack and end Akatsuki here and now. We might even be able to rescue the Jinchuriki." "Do you realize?" Tsunade trailed off as Jiraiya's throaty laugh filled her office. "What's so funny?" "You are, princess," said Jiraiya, wiping a tear from his eye. "I let slip that I might know where Akatsuki's leader is, and all of a sudden you're chomping at the bit to go destroy them. What happened to I am the Hokage, and I'm ordering that no forces will be deployed to any other hidden village to assist in the combating of Akatsuki." Tsunade's shoulders slumped as she let out a large sigh. "I hated to give that order. It tore me up to just stop trying to avenge the ninja we've lost to those monsters, but I'm also responsible for an entire village. But now that you know where they live, we can take the fight away from our own village. If we just killed a member or two, their leader might turn some more attention on the Hidden Leaf. But if we kill the leader, the rest of the organization might just fall apart. Well, their leader is someone who managed to get 9 other S-rank criminals to follow him, and I doubt it was because of his charming smile. Whoever fought him would need to be equally as powerful, probably need to operate in a small group to keep that element of surprise," mused Jiraiya. No, not in a million years," said Tsunade, glaring at Jiraiya angrily. "What?" asked Jiraiya, holding his hands up defensively as he feigned innocence. "You're thinking of going off and doing this yourself? And as Hokage, no, as your friend, I'm not going to allow it." Tsunade crossed her arms across her considerable bust as Jiraiya lowered his own hands. "I think that Akatsuki's leader might be someone I once trained." Tsunade was shocked by the new information Jiraiya had shared. The only person that she remembered Jiraiya training was the 4th Hokage, who was undeniably dead. One of those orphans from the Land of Rain, back in the day. "I had thought they were all dead years ago." Jiraiya's head was lowered in shame. He obviously blamed himself for his students' crimes, at least partially. Tsunade's strength was legendary, rumored and capable of causing volcanic eruptions and earthquakes with one hand. So Tsunade decided to hold back a little bit as she slapped some sense into her old teammate, quite literally. "You are not responsible for this, he is. Get that through your head, or I'll break every bone in your body to keep you out of this mission." Jiraiya massaged his cheek, contemplating whether or not he needed to pop his jaw back into place. "No one else has the power needed to go up against Nagato. I taught him everything he knows, and he probably learned a few new tricks after all these years. I can't be looking out for someone else. And if there are any other Akatsuki members there? Not even you could take 2 of them at once. I'm sending at least 2 Anbu to keep anyone else out of away from you," said Tsunade, exercising her strength as Hokage as she reached for the required paperwork. Jiraiya smirked in defeat and picked up the scroll Tsunade handed him. "All right, but I won't take any but the best here. I can't be worried for some green jonin while I'm fighting Akatsuki's leader. I wouldn't think of sending anyone but the best for something this important. I might even see if the old cripple has anyone skilled enough hiding in the woodwork." That Tsunade was contemplating asking Danzo for assistance testified to the level of devotion she was giving this mission. Jiraiya leapt onto the windowsill to make his exit when Tsunade stopped working on her paperwork to address him one last time. "I don't care if you kill Akatsuki's leader or not. Just come back alive, okay?" Jiraiya left the office with a contented smile on his face, and he resolved to ask Tsunade out on a date when he got back. But in the meantime, he had to break some bad news to some distraught parents. "I'm truly sorry. I tried to save him, but he left me no choice." Jiraiya really was sorry that he couldn't save someone who was equally the son of the person who trained him and the person he trained. As we've said before, we don't hold it against you, boy. Jiraiya was relieved that Fukasaku wasn't furious with him, but he's surprised at how well the elderly toad was taking it all. I do hold your incompetence against you though. Jiraiya yelped as the stout stick that had smacked excess natural chakra out of him before hit him once again. What are you talking about? Exclaimed Jiraiya, rubbing the back of his head in pain. Even I get hurt in Sage mode when I use the Hellfire Rasengan, and that's just the recoil. There's absolutely no way Naruto survived that. And yet his name is still on the wall of summoners. Countered Fukasaku. Despite his belief that Naruto was indeed dead, Jiraiya couldn't argue with the old toad's logic. The powers that controlled the wall of summoners were strange and unknown, but it had apparently never been wrong in all the toad's recorded history. The chances that it was wrong now were astronomical. It doesn't matter, said Jiraiya, standing up and looking more determined than ever. He's following not Akatsuki, but their leader. If I can kill Nagato, I might not have to kill Naruto. Ma was whipping up dinner when you came calling. Why not stay for a bit? Jiraiya hastily and politely turned down Fukasaku's offer, suddenly remembering a vital appointment he had back in the village. Just one thing, you gotta admit, when it comes to tailed beasts, we're hypocrites. Naruto quirked an eyebrow and Motoi just sighed. Naruto and B had been clashing ideologies all day, stopping only for food, mostly because Naruto was still recovering a bit, and B didn't have much else to do except try and turn his fellow Jinchuriki to his way of thinking. I'll admit that they ain't priests, but when it comes to evil, humans aren't the least. Naruto sighed exasperatedly. I'll give that you and the 8th Yuki, amended Naruto, catching Killer Bee's glare, have convinced me that the tailed beasts aren't mindless animals. But you have no proof that they're inherently better than human beings. Proof I've got if it's proof you need. Just look at who made Jinchuriki. Before he was signing autographs, the first Jinchuriki was the Sage of Six Paths. Naruto placed his hand on his forehead and let out another sigh as he defended his worldview. For the sake of argument, let's pretend that the Sage of Six Paths isn't just an old fairy tale. The Ten Tails was destroying and killing. He may have imprisoned it, but he wasn't evil. The tailed beast forced his hand. Just like you and me. Our hands aren't clean, but it doesn't make us evil. This world forces the beings that inhabit it to commit atrocities, the only difference is why we do so, argued Naruto. If I kill a person, what makes it any more or less evil than when you kill someone? I'll admit this world does play a part, but good or evil comes from the heart. Rapped Killer Bee, bumping his fist against his chest for emphasis. If you don't fight to protect, then darkness in your heart will infect. Motoi chose this moment to make his exit, leaving the two Jinchuriki alone with the remnants of dinner as he massaged his temples. Darkness in the heart? Unless you have some way to detect the darkness in someone's heart, all you have is ideological nonsense. If you can't, and you can't, then we have no way of knowing who is in the wrong, or if any of us are. Naruto smirked as he saw Killer Bee deflate, but the rapping Jinchuriki perked back up almost immediately. I might have a way, though it is taboo. But I think I'll make an exception to convince you. Naruto was surprised that Killer Bee could make himself this quiet. If the darkness in your heart we can defeat, then to befriending the Nine Tails, I'll have a front row seat. And where is this proof? I'm not exactly up for a cross-country jog. In truth, Naruto was exaggerating his injuries, but it never hurt to have someone underestimate you. Apparently it wasn't far if Killer Bee's grin was anything to go by. I'm gonna give you proof. After a quick little jaunt to the Waterfall of Truth. Danzo was once a ninja of great renown, able to fight on par with the likes of the third Hokage and other legends. Then during the First World War, the second Hokage had named Hiruzen Sarutobi as the third Hokage before sacrificing himself to allow the others to escape. That sacrifice had driven Danzo to become as strong as he could become so that if no one would ever have to sacrifice themselves for his sake again. Looking back on it, it was a foolish goal held by a young ninja who was still full of emotion and ideals. He had been lucky to survive the explosive note that had ruined his arm and destroyed his right eye. After that, he retired to more civilian lifestyle, though he still had a hand in training the next generation. He had formed route to train others to avoid the mistakes he had made. Cowardice had killed the second Hokage, and his rage at life had prematurely ended his own career. By avoiding emotion, a ninja could become the ultimate tool for the village. That was not to say he had let his own skills dull. To what do I owe the honor, Lady Hokage? Asked Danzo without turning around as he took a sip of his tea. Tsunade sighed as she emerged from the shadows of his small living room. There's no surprising you, is there? Mused Tsunade as she sat down opposite the old cripple. Emotions lead to hate, which leads to war. I have tried to rid myself of emotions, surprise included. But you have not yet answered my question. Why have you sought me out? Said Danzo, looking intently at Tsunade with his one good eye. Jiraiya found out where Akatsuki's leader is. I honestly can't risk any more high-profile ninja against Akatsuki, and I don't have enough Anbu members who are good enough to keep up with Jiraiya. Danzo placed his tea down and replied in a slow monotone that betrayed no emotion. I'm honored you think so highly of me, but I'm afraid age has taken its toll on me. He let out an exaggerated sigh as he continued, shaking his head melodramatically. I'm afraid this old cripple just can't keep up with you young people anymore. Cut the act, Danzo. I'm the Hokage, I know all about Root. Tsunade was just getting warmed up when Danzo cut her off with a raised hand. Of course you know. Just as the third Hokage knew, and if he had held the office for longer than a month, I suspect the fourth Hokage would have known as well. Danzo opened his one eye to stare down the legendary medic in front of him. I don't do what I do to usurp your position, despite what you may believe. Root is what operates in the shadows, doing the dirty work to keep the tree healthy and upright. Fine, I get it. It's all for the village. Conceded Tsunade testily. Regardless, I need some of your better operatives to assist Jiraiya in taking out Akatsuki's leader. If we can end him, we can render Akatsuki leaderless, making any retaliation almost impossible. And if we fail, the fewer dead ninja I have to explain to the public, the better. I understand all too well, said Danzo. Tsunade's eyes widened in surprise at getting the old warhawk to actually agree with her so easily. Root has operated in the shadows on this kind of mission since its founding. Some unregistered ninja may just find themselves following Jiraiya, and who knows? They may just be willing to offer their assistance. Tsunade nodded in thanks and wordlessly got up to leave. Danzo wisely decided to keep his past dealings with Akatsuki and Hanzo the Salamander quiet. Some things were better left in the shadows. Datara flew along, filling the void of sky and the void of conversation by running through hypothetical scenarios that she might find her perpetually dying partner in. Maybe he's been kidnapped by pirates that sealed